to thank you all for joining us to discuss the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the thousands of small businesses that make up the live events industry. And I want to especially thank you, Mark Johnson, and everybody here at Star Exhibits for hosting this session and for the extraordinary tour you just afforded us moments ago. My name is Dean Phillips, representative for Minnesota's 3rd Congressional District. I'm also the chair of the House Small Business Subcommittee on Oversight, Investigations, and Regulations. I'm so pleased to be joined today by my dear friend and colleague and fellow Small Business Committee member, Representative Angie Craig, who represents Minnesota's 2nd Congressional District. We'll hear from Angie momentarily. I often say that representation begins with listening, and that's exactly what we're here to do today, and that's what this gathering is all about. As a small business owner myself, I have great reverence for entrepreneurs and the innovators who put it all on the line, blood, sweat, and tears to turn their dreams into realities. And I know that the past year and a half has turned some of those dreams into nightmares. Despite the growing economy, many small businesses, as we all know, continue to suffer from the effects of COVID-19, particularly those that rely on in-person gatherings. This has meant that live events, hospitality, travel, and fitness in particular have borne the brunt of COVID-related shutdowns and other public health and safety measures. And while Congress took quick action to ensure that Americans remained on payrolls and small businesses were able to keep the lights on through relief efforts like the Paycheck Protection Program, the Restaurant Relief Fund, Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program, many small businesses, sole proprietors, and independent contractors experiencing massive revenue losses were shut out of those programs. For that reason, I recently sent letters to Governor Walz and state legislative leaders, along with Hennepin County board members, asking them to use a portion of the very substantial federal, state, and local relief funds included in the American Rescue Plan to stand up new targeted relief programs for small businesses disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. As members of the Small Business Committee, we know that more must be done, has to be done, to help those disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We are here to listen to your stories so that we can then use them to advocate on your behalf in Washington, D.C. And I look forward to hearing from each of you and your stories and having a conversation, not just about the problems you're all facing, but about the solutions that we can help you with in Washington. Before we get to that, however, I'd like to turn it over to my friend, Congresswoman Craig, for her opening remarks.
Well, thank you so much, Dean, Congressman Phillips. I am a proud member of Congressman Phillips' subcommittee on the Small Business Committee. The House Committee on Small Business used to be viewed as a little bit of a sleepy committee, but obviously during this public health crisis, it has served as such an important conduit for bipartisan support over the last year and a half for items that were contained within the CARES Act, the Paycheck Protection Program, of course, being the one that my businesses in the 2nd District talk about the most, but also our fight for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, as well as the Shuttered Venues Operators Grants Program. To be fair, SBA is a small-ish agency. The rollout of each of these programs was certainly not perfect, but I know my office enjoys a very good relationship with the Minneapolis Small Business Administration, the Minnesota Small Business Administration, and we know that they have done everything they can to issue that guidance, to partner with PPP, and do the best they can to make sure that as many small businesses survive as possible. As Congressman Phillips said, though, your government asked many of your businesses to shut down. We asked you to do that because there was a public health crisis that put our constituents at risk, and it is my view that when your government asks you to shut down, that we have a responsibility to step forward and help your business survive. You know, in the last few weeks, I visited Sheldon Theater in Red Wing. I visited the State Theater in Zumbrota just a couple of days ago, nights ago, and it's really apparent to me that not only did communities come together, but that many of you have sacrificed, many of your members have really sacrificed to keep your business alive during this very difficult time. You know, we were just asked, is it too late? And the answer is that it is never too late for the federal government to step in and help our small businesses, our businesses survive in this country, especially during this incredibly difficult time. So I just want to say thank you. I'm a little out of district, but I'm incredibly on topic for the work that I do for the 2nd Congressional District of Minnesota. And I'm also a proud member of the House Committee on Agriculture and a proud member of the Energy and Commerce Committee. So, Dean, thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you, Angie, and thrilled that you're here. And as the Congresswoman mentioned, we are a bipartisan committee, the Small Business Committee. Despite what you might see on the evening cable news or on social media, bipartisanship is not dead in Congress. The 2 members of Congress in front of you right now care deeply about working with those across the aisle. To that end, we did invite Congressmen Hagedorn and Stauber, who also are committee members along with us. However, they were unable to attend. But rest assured, what we hear from you today, what we take back to Washington, will not fall on deaf ears. What is being faced by many of you and those you represent is happening all around the country. There's not a district, a town, a community, a state in this country not touched by the pandemic, economically and otherwise. So rest assured, we're here to elevate this. That's why we're here, and look forward to hearing your stories. So with that, eager to hear from all of you, but we're going to start with you, Wendy Porter, the chair of the Minnesota Live Events Coalition and owner of Wendy Porter Events. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you so much. Congressman Phillips and Congresswoman Craig, thank you for hosting this session today and for hearing the stories of small businesses in the live events industry, an industry that I would venture to say is the hardest hit industry that no one is really talking about. My name is Wendy Porter, and I'm a small business owner of an event management company called Wendy Porter Events based in Minneapolis. I'm also the chair of the Live Events Coalition Minnesota, the vice chair of the Government Affairs team at the National Live Events Coalition in DC, and I also sit on the National Board of Directors for the coalition. Today we're going to hear stories from 9 of us, 8 others including myself, small Minnesota business owners here from the live events industry. These stories are not unique. Over the last year, the coalition has talked to hundreds of small business owners across the United States in our industry, and the stories are virtually all the same. The group here today is representing over 1 million small business owners in the United States from our industry that have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. I'd like to start off today by reading portions of a letter that the Live Events Coalition sent to President Biden in mid-July 2021. Dear Mr. President, we represent over 1 million small businesses and an estimated 12 million workers in America's live events industry who are struggling from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our businesses desperately need financial help to survive the damage incurred after 16 months of near to total shutdown of operations due to mandated closures to keep our communities safe from this deadly disease. Even while some industries are starting to rebuild, the live event sector will not have that opportunity as quickly, in part because of large gathering dynamics and the amount of time necessary to schedule and plan events. We have spoken to nearly 100 members of Congress about our plight, and virtually all acknowledge that we were left out. Yet Congress has not established a grant program to address our country's or our industry's ongoing challenges. We are reaching out today in a desperate plea for you to insist that the U.S. Congress invest in a targeted grant program to help the left behind small businesses of live events, which have been shuttered by the effects of the pandemic and left with insufficient means to recover, rebuild, and bring millions of American jobs back online. The live events industry may be invisible to most, as we primarily operate behind the scenes, but we touch the lives of every American, while serving as a critical engine for the U.S. economy. Before COVID-19, our industry provided an estimated $872 billion of economic impact in the U.S., which is nearly twice the size of the U.S. auto industry. We create and support events of all types: business events, conferences, trade shows, social events, rallies, fundraisers, fairs, festivals, performing art shows, and non-professional sporting events. Every American attends a professionally organized event in their lifetime. And we are the economic engine that drives much of our economy, with a deep ripple effect into multiple industries in our ecosystem. An event is the epicenter. People travel to get there, they stay in hotels, eat food at restaurants, shop, visit local sites, and often pay to attend the event, supporting hundreds of jobs and a myriad of small businesses with each function. Unfortunately, there was no curbside pickup in our world during COVID lockdowns. Our companies have suffered staggering losses, with an average 80% drop in revenue for 2020, a trend continuing to this very moment for many, if not most, entities in live events. We need an economic bridge before more of our colleagues go bankrupt and lose their jobs and small businesses. We need to invest in our people infrastructure, not just our physical infrastructure. 85% of small businesses were left out of relief grant programs, such as the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, entirely. Only a handful of event caterers qualified for, though did not necessarily receive, aid through the RRF, and a narrow swath of businesses in our ecosystem were eligible for funding through SBOG. The letter goes on to tell a similar story to the stories you're going to hear today, which I will skip today for time. But in closing, the live events industry is too important to our economy to fail, and we must take action now. We thank you for your consideration and for your service to our great nation. Sincerely, the 13 members of the Live Events Coalition Board of Directors. So that was a great overview for July, right, of 2021, and here it is mid-August of 2021. Everything has changed, literally in the last month. Our world is turned back upside down now with a massive increase in the Delta variant. I work primarily in the corporate sector, the largest segment of our industry, and in just the past week, I've seen a significant increase in event cancellations across the country, with planners now discussing what to do for the rest of the year and into 2022. I have a lengthy list of corporate conferences and trade shows that have canceled in the last week. Millions and millions of dollars of lost revenue on our industry, again. Notable cancellations in the news include both the New York City Auto Show and the New Orleans Jazz Festival. But what you likely haven't heard about is the cancellation of a major medical conference in Orlando and a large real estate conference in Austin, Texas. And at McCormick Place in Chicago, they're reporting 50% cancellations for the remainder of 2021, and that was 2 days ago. So as we go further into the year, more is going to be canceled. One of my clients made the decision just last week to pull out of a large healthcare conference in Las Vegas, which actually started yesterday. My clients lost their entire investment in this year's conference in order to keep their employees safe, even though the entire group that was going to go was vaccinated. They pulled out. So our situation is far from over. Our industry has not gotten targeted aid over the last 17 months that we need and deserve, and we're not out of the woods. The state, our funds that were intended to be used for COVID relief for small businesses aren't getting to us, as you mentioned. At least not in Minnesota. Some of the other states are doing a better job of than Wisconsin or Minnesota is. And we continue to be impacted simply because of consumer confidence issues, corporate risk mitigation with companies not allowing staff to travel and gather at events for the foreseeable future. I recently saw a meme on social media that sums it up pretty well. We are all in the same storm. Some of us are on yachts, some of us are paddling canoes, and some of us are drowning. We are the ones drowning. I'm sorry to take our stories back to Washington and help us figure out a way forward. Thank you for your support and your service to this great nation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Oh, Wendy, we hear you. Thank you. We're now going to listen to various business owners and advocates. And if you might just keep your remarks to about 3 minutes, if possible, we'd welcome that. Wendy, maybe before we begin, if you could just share with us what types of businesses comprise the coalition, the breadth, just so everybody understands,
Yep.
How wide this is. And,
hey, Mark, I'm going to build that
the microphone.
No worries, sorry.
Okay, so the coalition is made up of 6 different vertical markets. That would be the corporate market, which is your meetings, conferences, product launches, brand launches, trade shows, consumer trade shows, grand openings, company parties, all of those types of things. We have fairs and festivals, which is your art, music, carnivals, circuses, expositions. We have your fundraising and political events, galas, auctions, rallies, inaugurations, sporting events, and we're talking non-professional, so not the NFL, not the NBA, local team sports, marathons, tournaments, rodeos. Celebrations, which would be weddings, mitzvahs, anniversaries, graduations, and then performances, like the last category, which is concerts, theater, opera, dance, and comedy. So it's a large, broad group of people.
Thank you, and I want you to know that the emotion you just shared, I know is felt by so many around the country. So thank you, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Johnson. I'm the founder of Star Exhibits. First of all, thank you, Representative Craig and Phillips, for everything you've done to help the small businesses. Sorry, when you've touched me already during the last year. We're based here in the Twin Cities, and we've been executing events and trade shows for 28 years now. We're on our 29th year. We design, build, and manage award-winning exhibits for companies across the globe, many of them being here right in Minnesota with like Target, 3M, Graco, and teams like the Vikings. As we mentioned, I am past president of EDPA, which is the Experiential Designer Producers Association. It's really one of the big industries in our big organizations in our industries. I am presently the treasurer of the foundation for EDPA. Myself, my team, and my company are still heavily active in many of the industry associations, like Wendy. The data that I'm going to share with you today comes from EDPA and CEIR, C-E-I-R, which is the Center for Exhibition Industry Research. And as Wendy said, most people don't recognize how many small businesses work to support events, trade shows, and conventions. They also don't recognize how badly we've been damaged due to the COVID epidemic. During good times, my company had 117 employees more than a year ago, and no trade shows. We're now down to the 36 to 40. Last March, when the shutdown started, we felt the effect immediately, as over 9,400 major industry events were canceled. These events were attended by more than 64 million people in 2019. None of those shows happened in 2020. Our trade show revenue is down 90% from 2019, but across our industry, the average loss in revenue is 94%. We were hoping that we had turned the corner, and we were starting to see some things rebound, but as Wendy said, the Delta variant has changed all things. As she mentioned, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen major industry events canceled. As she mentioned, the New York Auto Show, Bravo's channel, BravoCon, the Retail Supply Chain Conference, along with many of the medical conferences that she's mentioning with them. Unfortunately, we're expecting more of that to continue. We've heard from our clients, many of them here in Minnesota, that they have no plans on attending any trade shows this year. In our industry, we are losing 3 to 5 small businesses every week. All right, we don't expect a full comeback until Q1 or Q2 of next year. Unfortunately, I've had 2 business owners that I know commit suicide. Promised my team I wouldn't do that. During this situation, but again, as you mentioned, the PP program was vital for our survival, and it has covered us for several months. But roughly 2,000 businesses across the country, like mine, have exhausted all of the PPP funds, and we're looking for some help. The Shuttered Venues Grant Program has saved a lot of people in the entertainment business, but in the trade show business, our pain is not yet over, and we need some assistance. So we thank you in advance. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. I want to thank both of you for humanizing this, because it's really important. It's not just about money, it's not about businesses, it's about people and their pursuits and their dreams, and thank you. Very, Chris.
Good afternoon, and thank you for meeting with us today. My name is Chris Navarro, and I'm a constituent of Representative Craig. My business, Shamrock Productions, produces consumer trade shows like sport shows, home shows, at convention centers in both Minnesota and Wisconsin. My family-owned business of 49 years was abruptly shut down on March 13, 2020, 2.5 weeks before our biggest event was to take place. Because of the lockdown, capacity limits, and restrictions on indoor gatherings, we have had to cancel an additional 4 events, including our biggest show 2 years in a row. My business has been decimated. I am 100% down in revenue for 15 months straight. And since restrictions were removed for indoor gatherings earlier this summer, I am down an additional 65% for the month of June, July, and heading into August. The road to recovery will be long. I am now in serious debt, and I, like other promoters in my industry, are facing at least a 2 to 3 year recovery to get back to pre-pandemic levels. My events take an average of 10 months of planning before the actual event takes place. The RRF and the XPOG have saved many businesses, which is great, but I also do 100% of my events in convention centers. Yet we've been told we don't qualify. Our events stimulate the local economy by not only supporting the venues themselves, but also by generating capital to the 700+ businesses that participate in our shows, as well as supporting local restaurants, hotels, airlines, advertising, and the like. We represent millions in economic impact to the local communities that we hold our events in. I'm here to not only advocate for myself, but also for the other promoters across the United States. We put events on in every major city and in every state. We have all done our part to stop the spread of COVID-19, but our businesses have suffered greatly. Our stories are the same. We've taken out idle loans, PPP loans, depleted our savings, sold homes of 20+ years, dipped into retirement accounts, borrowed from our families, taken pay cuts, and are working short staffed. I've heard it all, and it's honestly heartbreaking, because we truly are one of the hardest hit industries, and we have fallen through the cracks in a spectacular way. Just like all of the SVOG recipients today, we too have been shut down by the government, making it impossible to function. So I'm asking you today to go back to Washington and advocate for us. The government has a duty to make sure that we can survive. If we don't get help from Congress, many in our industry will be closing our doors permanently. We believe that upwards of 25% of our small businesses in our industry have already shuttered. How many industries or small businesses could sustain the loss that we have endured and for the duration that we were shuttered and still be expected to survive? Not many. The crisis isn't over for us and time is running out. We need help now. We needed it 17 months ago. Please go back to Washington and be our voice and fight like your survival depended on it, because all of ours does. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I think we're Diane next. Thank you.
My name is Dan Dilscoli. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I appreciate the time you've taken to listen to our concerns. On Friday, March 13th, I started the day working as a carpenter at the General Theater. My Friday evening was already booked solid with an opening night of a small show in which I was the technical director. Saturday was the final show at the high school, for which I'm the after-school technical director and stagecraft teacher. I wasn't going to get to see their final performance because I was already stage managing a show for Walking Shadow Theater Company. On Sunday, I was booked to start a week as a run-through on a show with the Guthries. Around my Guthrie show schedule, I was revving up work on the Small Museum of Minnesota to produce their 7th anniversary event, while also doing any final touch-ups on a set at the Nicholas Theater. I had even booked a week with the Children's Museum of Minnesota in early May to install an exhibit at a museum in Chicago, and had just been asked to stage manage a production in late May for another local company. This is what it looks like to be a mid-career professional in the live entertainment industry. I was the sole proprietorship of my own skills. I was a small business of one. When I went to bed on Friday, March 13th, I no longer had a job. Any job. In the course of 36 hours, I had lost 8 jobs and more than a quarter's worth of income. By the end of the week, I was out every job I had lined up for the summer and into the fall. And then there was nothing. It was limbo, purgatory. Constant promises that the industry would come back in a few weeks, in a few months, in early 2021, surely by the end of May 2021. Now it's clear that as an industry, we won't be back before 2022. And with the latest update from the Delta variant, it's probably going to be even longer. As this situation drags on, my community is being disassembled. We've lost huge amounts of institutional knowledge as people retire. We've lost the skills of people at the peak of their career as they reskill and move into different fields in order to survive. And we're losing professionals who took their transferable skills and went to new jobs. Like me. I now work in residential remodel. All of these skills are necessary to have live events in the future, and most of the people with the skills are sole proprietorships. We haven't had a bridge or a hand during this pandemic. We haven't gotten government assistance to make sure we can come back when it's all fixed. Theater work is skilled work, and the skills are leaving the field. We can't hire an untrained person to run a soundboard or hang lights. Without the people who knew how to do these tasks safely, the tasks are done unsafely. And unfortunately, the new people are going to learn the consequences of unsafe the hard way. Even if theaters can be open soon, that doesn't fix our financial woes. The money that we earned from ticket sales, the last show, was spent months ago on rent, on keeping the heat on over the winter, and now there's more than a year's worth of delayed maintenance on our spaces and our equipment. When we walked out and locked the doors behind us, we left with refrigerators full of fake blood and crop food and ice packs, I'm pretty sure entire civilizations have like risen and fallen in some of those bridges. But also all of our machinery has been sitting for almost a year and a half. Gasoline's been left in the gas tanks of work village for 17 months. Brake fluid and chain oil on genie lists haven't been changed. And that maintenance is going to take time, and the time costs money that no one has. Like the lost knowledge of the people leaving the field, these bits of delayed maintenance make us unsafe at work. We can't just start up the engine and make beer again. We need time and the financial support to rebuild our machine. The measures that were put in place to help small businesses skipped over people like me. As a business of one, I don't have employees, so I don't qualify for a PPP loan. I don't have a venue, so I can't get relief through SBOG. I, and many of my friends and colleagues, have left the industry in order to survive on a personal level. We'd like to come back. And if the industry as a whole is going to survive, we need to come back. We can't come back if there isn't financial support for us while we do it. So here's my ask to the two of you in this room. Be our advocates. Help us find a way to survive right now so that all of our future, the future of this whole country and honestly the world, can be full of art and culture and wonder again. Work with your colleagues to pass legislation so that my colleagues can get back to work.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Wendy, thank you for putting this on, Congressman Craig and Congressman Phillips, thanks for being here for us today. My name is Marcia James. I'm the president of Child Over Catering, 17-year-old woman-owned catering company in Minneapolis. I'm also the founding co-chair of the Minnesota Events Coalition, which was founded in April of 2020 in direct response to the lack of relief available to companies like ours that had to be shut down forcibly on March 13th, 2020, and received no direct relief, which would have come immediately in the form of tax relief. I'm also a founding partner of Minnesota Sanitation, and that's kind of where our story starts. March 12th, we employed 133 people. March 16th, we had laid off 120 of those people. All of those being seasonal servers, bartenders, as well as 20 full-time employees. We did think at that time that we would have to go and start a close our business. There would have been no way for us to stay open. Thankfully, a partnership with Second Harvest Heartland to prepare emergency hunger relief meals has allowed us to keep the lights on at our headquarters and allowed us at that moment actually to rehire many chefs who were out of work. Pivoting the business from high-end catering to emergency meal production has had a dramatic effect on our operating procedures. And as you can imagine, there was no way for us to reasonably predict what the expenses would have been associated with such a dramatic change in our operations. However, we're grateful for the opportunity to have been sustained through this time through this work. In addition, though, we were forced to refund, postpone, or transfer over 106 wedding servants. The value of that is about $600,000. And as a result, our net income is down over 100% from 2019 to 2020, and we will see a lot of that this year. After 15 months, we were finally in a position to be able to offer full service catering again with the reduction of restrictions in May. But the re-entry into this really high-risk work has been very slow and trepidatious. The hurdles of navigating staffing right now are incredibly extreme. Many of our previous staff as well have left the industry entirely or are not willing to return to such a high-risk environment at this time. After having no work for more than 15 months, many of them have lost the system entirely. But in returning, training, safety, and capacity remain incredible strains on the system. We lost nearly all of our previous staff, which means another entire restructure of our company, investing in new equipment, protocols, accommodating safety precautions, balancing constantly changing capacity issues with what was mandated by the state,
And as well as our physical staff, physical space and staff, those are ongoing expenses, just fluctuating constantly. We did receive both CDP 1 and 2, and we're fortunate to have done so. These loans allowed us to maintain jobs and retire, but they really were not enough. In addition to loss of revenue, constant enduring expenses weigh heavily on our cash flow. For example, our small event space, which did not qualify for the shuttered venue operators grant because we do not sell tickets. We host weddings, private events. We did not bring in any revenue into the state for 15 months, and yet we paid $260,000. A lot of my colleagues, Wendy's colleagues in the Minnesota Events Coalition are small venue operators that were not eligible in any way for any Henderson County grants, which was kind of the only other catch-all for people who didn't qualify for FCOG. The restaurant revitalization funds are gone. Our application was stuck in the system, and unless that program is refunded, we will not receive those funds either. We are fortunate that caterers were included in those funds, but as you can see, there are a lot of our colleagues who are not included in that program whatsoever. And now we face a slew of new cancellations. I had 17 cancellations in the last 10 days. That's valued at over $60,000. And the increase of the Delta variant is directly impacting our business for the next fiscal year. It also really, in turn, is impacting the hourly staff that work for us. When I have an event cancel, I have cancellation. At this point, we've seen many of our competitors close entirely. And regardless of funding already received, this ongoing impact on our business and our employees is undeniable. Though we have a contract with Second Harvest Heartland through September, we don't know whether the transition to catering is safe enough with the rise of these COVID variants to be able to sustain our operations into the next year. I agree that the ARPA funds need to be opened up, both on the state and city level. Allocations to our colleagues in this industry, in particular to take care of the small businesses who have not been included in TDP, RRF, or FCOG. I implore you to work with your colleagues and with our other elected officials to be able to really bring this information to light and to highlight the great impact that we have on so many lives.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, I'm Marty Johnson. I'm from Edina, 3rd District. Thank you so much for being willing to listen to what we all have to say today. I'm an artist and have been in business for pushing 30 years in sole income. I market through fine art fairs and festivals throughout the United States. My business has been shut down since March of 2020 through the end of June 2021, 15 months. That represented 46 events that canceled, and I lost 94% of my income during that time. The brunt of my operating expenses occurred during the winter months to be recouped the rest of the year. I rolled all those costs into the SBA business loans. I'm most grateful for those, PPP in particular. And took out business loans as well as personal loans. All those loans are now coming due at the end of this year. I was hopeful about that, concerned now, of course, with the rise in the Delta variant, that some of the events are now looking across the country as they are going to cancel. In addition to all of that, I lost half of my retirement savings when the market crashed last year. So I've been living off of what was residual from that, as well as some unemployment income. And then unemployment, of course, is going to be done now in the next few weeks. Hoping for the PCA forgiveness for the upcoming art fairs to offset those loans. However, this is my concern. I am sort of realizing now that retirement's off the table for me. I'm going to need to continue to work, but in order to do so, I need to have art fairs to sustain that income. And that's true across the country. There are about 20,000 visual artists, and I know about this via Facebook groups, of course, that talk about what is happening to all of the state by state, and so we get some kind of understanding how this is occurring nationwide. Many of the artists are not able to sustain themselves because they depend on artists to provide the booth fees. Without those, they can't sustain themselves. Many of the organizations are Chamber of Commerce, they're small business associations that exist. Their mission is to support the local small business, and they use these art fairs as a vehicle to bring customers in to support the small business. Typically, you probably are aware of Uptown Association and what's happened to them more recently. They've been punched 3 times now with COVID and then 2 episodes of civil unrest. They're going into, and they had to cancel 2 of their events, our largest art fairs in the state, some of the largest in the whole country, bringing in national artists. They depend entirely on artists' booth fees to survive, and they have nothing. They're going to be going into their 3rd year without any income. They only qualify for an EIDL loan. They have to repay because they don't qualify as part of, because they don't have a physical building, they don't have a BIPOC funding, and they also are nonprofit. They have a board of directors, so they have no vehicle to support and build up what's happening in the whole Uptown area. So as those businesses are leaving, tenants are leaving because of what's happening over there, they have nowhere to turn. They don't know what they're going to do. And so I'm asking and hoping that perhaps as you move forward, that you could initiate some of these loans to broaden the criteria of eligibility for groups like the art fairs that don't meet that former criteria funding, and to allow them to also be eligible for a forgiveness factor as well, because they don't have any resource now for repayment.
So true. Thank you, Marty, very much.
Hello, my name is Shauna Dugo, and I am part of Representative Craig's district. You, Brooklyn Park is a whole different ballgame. It's
a little dry.
It's a little dry.
Welcome.
We love it here. Thank you. So I want to start by saying that our industry, the live events industry, seems to be 3 major events that have impacted our entire industry just this century. 9/11 with the Great Recession, and now this, it seems that we're the first ones to be impacted and the last ones to recover. And within that live event industry, we are the hidden ones in that industry, so we are definitely impacted when something like this happens. This is the most scary of my career. The public doesn't really know about us, as some of us have said, because we work behind the scenes, but you know about us now, and I'm so grateful for listening to us. I've been in the industry for 30 years, all in the live events industry. I own 2 businesses. My first one is as a professional speaker at live conferences, primarily corporate conferences. Back in February of 2020, I was gloating because I had booked the best year I was ever going to have, riding high, and then a month later I had lost 85% of that. And I was able to pivot, cringy word, I was able to pivot to Zoom for the remaining 15% of those conferences, but the pay is significantly lower. All of those fees were renegotiated. The Zoom fatigue is very real, as you all very well know, and I don't see a huge resurgence of Zoom meetings thanks to the Delta variant. All of my gigs for 2021, the remainder of the year, have now canceled except for one, which is 10 days in Nashville. I don't know what they're thinking, but they're going forward. And so so I will be there because I need some money. I did not qualify for PPP because of the structure of my business. I laid off my two assistants. One has come back part-time because I thought, oh, things are finally coming back, but I will need to lay her off probably next month. She is a single mom with two kids. Kids at the age of two, just at the years of the pandemic, having babies. I have an EIDL loan that has been actually deferred, but it's still accruing interest. I continue to receive cancellations due to the Delta variant, and like many of the people in this room, the length of time that it takes to book a gig and actualize that gig and pay for the gig continues to. So not looking great right now. My other business, which is far more important to the industry than my little self, is called SPIN. It's the Senior Planners Industry Network, and it's a network of 2,500 of the live event industry's most senior level planners. The average experience is 20 years, although many have 30 or 40 years in the industry, and they have to have this level of experience to qualify. So most of these, like Wendy is a member, and Linda in the back there, they are members. They are mostly small business owners like myself, and while the membership struggle financially, it has paradoxically become of the utmost importance during the pandemic in some unanticipated ways because the discussions have shifted to be less on meetings and more on personal struggle. As the voice of these 2,500 members across North America, I can tell you that the stress level is unbelievable. Mental health challenges are very real, and the financial implications are devastating. And we're not unique. Everyone of us has told a similar story just in this room. There are thousands of us. The average age in my network is in their 50s. Many have tried getting work outside the live event industry as a stopgap measure. That ageism is quite real to many of us. These are incredibly smart business strategists and small business owners who can't get entry-level work in corporate America right now. Many of them are just leaving their retirement to stay afloat. And that's scary when you're in your 50s or 60s. Many can qualify for PPP like me because they are small businesses with contractors due to the widely varying workloads, which is the nature of our work. We gear up, we hire 100 contractors, and then the next day they're off to something else. So we want to, if they qualify for the EIDL loans, those people, they're watching interest accrue as well, but the next wave of meetings would be to cancel. So how are they going to be able to make those payments? They're all worried about that. There will be no income for many until 2022. I want to thank the members of Congress for the aid that we have gotten in place. We're grateful for those programs, but we need to help the hidden thousands and thousands who fall through the cracks because they're not venues or restaurants or airlines. And we are so grateful that those industry partners of ours have gotten aid because our industry cannot survive without them. But there are so many more who have not qualified for any aid, and I'm scared for them as this pandemic takes another turn. In good times, the economic impact of live meetings is significant in every city in America. We create jobs, we stimulate travel, and we impact millions of Americans. We need your help to be able to continue doing that and short me a lifeline.
Thank you, Sharon.
Turning it to Brandon or James.
Well, yeah, speaking of the hidden thousands, we did have two potential participants on Zoom. Are Brandon or Jamie?
So Brandon won't be joining,
Okay.
so we're gonna go to Jamie.
Okay, Jamie, if you can hear us, you're live.
Let me see. I'm here. Can you see me?
We can hear you, like a voice from above.
Oh, it's not. It's a godly voice from above, right?
Yeah, you've got all of us very attentive right now.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank Wendy for bringing all of us together because these are such unique voices because we are all very, very different, which is very special because we all have such a unique, special part we bring to this industry. But I'm going to start by thanking you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. I'm very close to Star Exhibits and I love driving by every day and noticing your building. So thank you for being in Brooklyn Park. We're really close to you. I'm Jamie Leopold. My husband and I own Leopold's Mississippi Gardens Event Center. We are in Brooklyn Park in the 3rd Congressional District of Minnesota. We are in an event center that mostly specializes in making couples' dreams days come true when they get married and have the best day of their lives. We do many fundraisers, company parties, corporate events, and many other celebrations of life. We opened our doors only 5 years ago and was always told that once we hit that magic 5 years, that was when we finally be established and maybe make a profit, except for that didn't come for us, unfortunately. I am summarizing to make this simple, but it was anything but. It was by far one of the most challenging years of my life, and I have been through some tough years that really no one should have to go through, but there was no help or end in sight. Our industry was crushed, and yet somehow we were invisible. Our 5th year came with 44 weddings being postponed to the following year, 2 couples taking us to conciliation court, and then just an extra kick while we were down was that they audited me in December of last year on the 2nd year that we were open. So they opened up our 2017 records, which we were just open, which was crazy. We love our couples and had hard conversations with every one of them that moved. I don't know if anyone understands what that means, so I need to explain this to you. It means them picking a new date with us that we cannot sell in the future. So they're taking a date, which is our only way for us to make money. It means trying to move the other vendors that trickle down from us to schedule, like their caterers, bartending company, photographer, videographer, the band, the DJ, the florist, wedding planner, bakery, rental decor company, photo booth company, and so many others that they try to hire, which is kind of some that maybe haven't been mentioned here, but there are so many that have been mentioned today. What about the contractors that we hire to set and clean our facilities and our properties, or our employees that many of us must keep on our payrolls so that we have good people working for us? My husband and I were interested in, we're in an interesting predicament because we don't have any employees. We're an LLC and we do not pay ourselves. We didn't qualify for any loans. When I say that, I mean none, 0. I was so lucky that my city, Brooklyn Park, was behind me, was able to send some help, but I didn't get the help that everyone else was talking about. PPE, restaurant revitalization, none of those. I didn't get any. I didn't qualify for anything because I was in a loophole that no one could explain to me. At one point, I was even banned for giving tours, which could have at least helped me to sell future business. I wasn't allowed to do that, but I had to pay my property taxes, which honestly, I'm not even sure how I can afford this year. Property taxes on my property alone, just to give you an example, is $65,000 a year. And my sales last year were over 60%, and weddings were way lower, which means everything was lower because there's lower numbers, there's lower everything because of that. And that's kind of what we're seeing even with the Delta variant coming down the pike too. So what am I supposed to do? Who is going to help me? How can someone tell me that I cannot operate, but then not give me help when I'm down? Doesn't seem honestly fair. I guess it's a conversation I have with my children every day. The only reason we made it, honestly, was because my husband had a career prior and played hockey for 13 years professionally. We did everything we could not to take out any loans, including small business loans. We knew if we did, we would not be able to service the debt service. This is where many people will say that we must have tons of money. He played hockey. They don't feel sorry for us. This is simply not true. And I'm not asking for you to feel sorry for us. What I'm asking for you to do is to look at all the businesses that didn't make it, the contractors that can barely survive because they're lost in this loophole. Someone needs to stand up and help us. The only reason I'm still standing is because my husband did bang his head into hockey boards and may not remember my name and later in life. I'm kidding, but not really. I'm thankful for what he gave for my family. And all I'm asking for the rest of you is to help other people now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jamie. And to all of you, you humanize this in a way that the country needs to hear, and I know Angie would say the same, that we're subject to a lot of special interest groups that are well funded and well organized and come knocking on our doors every day in the halls of Congress, and you know how this system works. The squeaky wheels get the grease and the money gets the grease. And the reason we decided to do this today together, Angie and me, was to give voice to those hidden thousands, Shauna, to which you refer, and Jamie, to that entire economic ecosystem that this industry supports. The photographers and the cleaners and the painters, I mean, everybody. And that's what we're here for. So I want to thank you all. And I will stand up, and I'm sure Angie will speak for herself too, but we want to do this, and we wish to bring your stories back to Washington. It's unfortunate that it's taken so long. I apologize for that, but it isn't too late, I hope. And then we want to help you keep the lights on, live to see another day, and not just survive, but thrive. And that's what we intend to try to do. It's not easy. Nothing in Washington is, but we're sure as heck going to give it our best shot. I'll start with a question and then turn it over to Angie. But we have all these programs, PPP. You've all referenced them, SBOG and EIDL and the like. Some of those programs work better for others than others. Some of you took advantage of them, others couldn't. There are a couple propositions that would support live events, as you know, floating around Washington right now. Perhaps share some perspective with us about if we could wave a magic wand, how to create a program that effectively addresses the comprehensive needs that so many of you and those for whom you advocate are facing, and how that program would look. And what about any existing propositions are either good or bad? If you could share any ideas with us, we'd welcome it.
So our key ask here is that we're not leaving anybody out, that we're looking at any small business that's been affected by this. It's had an impact. If you look at SBOG, for example, it was NAICS code based, right? And so was RRS, right? 72 for catering. We did an analysis of our industry and we discovered over 30 at minimum, probably, we don't even know really how many more there could be, but we identified at least 30 NAICS codes. And our worry is that if we make it NAICS code specific, we're still going to leave some people out, right?
You say 30, that should have been included.
30 different NAICS codes that would be part of our live event industry.
Okay.
Right. For our ecosystem, it's about 30 plus. Okay. We've identified 30. So our worry is, when we look at an SBOG, an expansion of that type of program, if it's NAICS code based, we're still going to leave some people out. So we would prefer that we do it more like RRF, which was based off of amount that a company was down, right? And it wasn't necessarily NAICS code based. And we're open to what the vehicle is. Is it another funding of RRF and expansion into allowing small business from the live event to be a part of that program? Is it an expansion of SBOG, but thinking very carefully about the NAICS code side, is it something completely different that we need to come up with? I think we're open on what that is. We just need to figure out a way to make it happen.
Okay, well, that's helpful. Thank you. Any other perspectives, comments on that subject of how we could either stand up a new program or improve an existing?
I'm not sure if I can talk. Sorry. I'm in the
Yeah,
Zoom.
please. Yeah, please.
Sorry, I'm like the voice from above. The property tax thing was a big thing. And I know that they moved it back a month, and that's not going to help everybody. But I know that would help some of these big businesses that do have the high property tax amount. Those things are huge amounts that we can't possibly recover those sales in those years. We just can't. I mean, a $65,000 amount property tax, that alone, I cannot recover regardless. And when I can't even do a tour in my building, even if it's masks on and only 4 people, that's where I had the biggest struggle. And that's for the future. That's for 2 years from now or 3 years from now. People or brides are looking at me. That's where I had a huge struggle.
I appreciate it, Jamie. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Angie.
Well, I just want to start by saying thank you to every single one of you, and of course, Wendy, for bringing so many of these great folks together. And Shauna, you and Chris in particular from the 2nd District. You know, I've been here for the district work period for about a week and a half now, and I've been all over the 2nd meeting with businesses just like yours to identify the gaps. And of course, the federal government tried to put in place a number of programs that would be all-encompassing to different kinds of industries, not knowing exactly what each individual industry sector would face in terms of its challenge. So with EIDL, with PPP, with RRF, with SFOP, it was intended to help so many of you, but it's clear to me today that there are some gaps. And we need to make sure on a bipartisan basis that our colleagues understand these gaps from what you've been through for the last 16 months. But perhaps more than that, this pandemic is not over for your businesses. And as we see the rise of the Delta variant, the worries and the cancellations continue to come. So regardless of what happened in the past, you're still going through this. And we need to make sure that we take that message back to Washington, back to the state. One of the things that I felt very strongly about is we wanted to get as much state and local government assistance in the hands of Minnesotans who would best know how to distribute that aid to our local communities. But it's clear to me today that both at the federal and perhaps even the state level, that there are some gaps that we really need to go back and advocate to close. So thank you so much for inviting me over here today to hear from all of you directly as well. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Angie. And to your point, as I expressed in my opening remarks, billions of dollars have been sent to the states too, that have a lot more flexibility, ongoing flexibility, many with a lot of cash in their accounts that has not been distributed. And we, despite that not being our jurisdiction, I know what we commit to advocating here at the state level, to our representatives, senators, to the governor and his staff, that there is distinct and urgent need. And you brought it to our attention, and that's our job.
And they're aware. And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with the state.
Yeah, and I do.
And here we are.
And that's what this is about. I want to say, that's why you sharing your stories. I thank the media for taking the time to come here and listen to and share, because that's how this has to work. And we want to give you louder voices. And I know it's been frustrating. You have every right to be frustrated with our government, as you see so many of your associates in other industries be taken care of and you somehow be left behind, and that's not fair. And I know we feel the same about changing that. It's our responsibility. I commit to you that we'll speak to the chairwoman of our committee, Nydia Velasquez, make her well aware, and also remind her that those hidden thousands, they're all over the country, in every district in this country, and we have to do something.
And it's millions.
And it's
12 million.
Yeah, 12 million jobs.
12 million
In
people.
fact,
And I
yeah.
have something I can share with you afterwards, an infographic that takes you through all of the jobs.
Okay, I'll take that with us.
Yeah.
I know we're kind of approaching the end of our gathering, but any other anything that any of you wanted to share that you may have forgotten or wish to add?
So one last thing I want to mention, we did establish a new coalition called the Economic Bridge Coalition.
Okay.
We're also calling it EBC, which is the shortened version of that. And that is 15 different coalitions, and I can send you more information on that, that includes American Rental Association, Photographers Association. There's a whole group in there, and I would be happy to send you more information on that, but it's all ancillary industries to ours, and some of them are part of ours that have been left out. So other types of businesses, dry cleaners, you name it.
Okay, yeah, please share that.
Yeah, we can share that with you.
And to remind you all that the SBA administrator will be here. I'll be coming down to Angie's district next week.
On Monday.
On Monday, and we will share that as well with the SBA. There are still monies in certain categories available, and we'll remind them as much advocacy as we can all do. And I encourage you, with your brothers and sisters in the industry, as expansive as possible, to use social media, to pick up the phone, to call representatives. That's how this works. And as I said earlier, there are plenty of well-resourced organizations that get a lot of share of mind in Washington. Our job is to try to help you do so. And it's a heavy lift, but I think collectively we can try to do something, and we will not rest. I promise you that. And I want to thank you all. Jamie, thank you. And to all of you, keep the faith and keep in touch. And rest assured, we're going to get to it ASAP. So thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And hold the applause until
we get anything done.